majority of Americans, Virginians, including Sudanese, support. That is universal childcare, affordable homes, healthy, affordable groceries that won't break the bank, and for a real democracy that works for all of us, and a Sudanese American voice that will stand up for our issues and make sure that they are addressed and not being addressed as a footnote. So, how do we mobilize the coalition that we've built and win? Let me be very clear. I would not have run for Congress if we did not think we had a real path to victory. Our data team, parentheses, Harvard guy, gave us really the blueprint of what we need to do to win. And there's really two conditions that are fairly simple and easy. We have to turn out our community and new Americans to vote and raise enough money to reach them. So the district has a large Sudanese presence, has a large Hispanic presence, Asian presence, Black presence. It's almost majority minority. But these politicians are counting on us not turning out to vote, and that's why they win easily. So we can easily change that and win. So it's within grasp, and I'm sure that we can get there. And this is where you come in. We need funds to hire organizers to spread our message effectively and make sure that these folks turn out. Our election is in June, so we have about a few months to go, but we can get there. So if you believe in our mission that it's time for a new generation of leaderships in Congress, and if you believe an unapologetic fighter who will stand against atrocities in Sudan and make sure that our agenda is the forefront, I'm asking you to please stand with me. Now, our community is growing and becoming more involved in the political system in America. And we've been lobbying since 2019. We are close to Congress in Alexandria. And we've lobbied many folks, and some of them decided to speak to our issue passingly. But what was really disappointing is that my Congress member, who has a huge Sudanese presence, we've been lobbying him for a while, and despite that huge Sudanese presence in his district, he is declined to engage with the issue seriously without giving us a reason, although the Sudanese issue is nonpartisan. But this is how powerful your voice is and our voices are. A month after I announced that I am running for Congress, he finally decided to say something about Sudan. Now, it wasn't real change, but it's still something. And he decided to join and support an act that one of our allies, Sarah Jacobs, introduced in Congress. I could say something about that act. You know, I see a lot of our activist youth are excited about it because their voices have been heard and they support it. But as an attorney, I've looked at the proposed legislation that's supposed to help Sudan and stop the flow of weapons to Sudan. And I've looked at the existing law. And to be frank with you, it's performative in my opinion, because the law that they're trying to propose already exists within a law called the Arms Exports Control Act. I won't get into too much details, but that's why we need fighters present there to make sure that our voices are heard and we're not giving this runaround. So that's why we need a voice in Congress. We don't need leaders who post when it's safe and disappear when it's hard. We need moral courage. We need results. We need fighters funded by you and grounded in you. I come from hourly jobs and picket lines, from case files and council chambers, from families trying to make it, and I am ready to be your fighter. Together, we will change who has a voice in Congress, from donors to neighbors, from the well-connected to the well-deserving. We will change what Congress works on, from branding to governing, from photo ops to paychecks. We will change how our government functions, not as a club for billionaires, but as a contract for the working class. If you've ever been priced out, pushed out, or talked over, this is your campaign. If you've ever waited for help and heard only silence, this is your microphone. If you ever wondered if America can still keep its promise, this is your answer. My name is Mohammed Saifuddin, and I'm running for Congress to lower costs, protect democracy, and fight for a stable Sudan for all of us. Thank you. So typically, this is where my speech would end, and then my campaign manager or someone would come and make an ask of you. But I'm here today alone. My campaign isn't here. So awkwardly, I'm going to make that ask. I talked about how we win and why we need to win and the numbers that we ran, and we could win. So we need to raise a certain amount of money to make sure that our voices are heard and that we can get out the vote. And to do that, we need donations and support from folks like you. The incumbent we're running against is supported by the establishment and well-funded, but we don't need to meet that number. We just need to reach a certain number that we need. So with that, with your support, I think we will get there. So we have the donation code there, the QR code. I'm not gonna do like they did yesterday and go one by one, but we need to raise enough funds to make sure that our voices are heard. And I would appreciate your donation so you can help us keep going. I'll give you a quick point. Most of our donations right now are actually coming from text messaging program. We are basically sending messages to Americans who hold the same values as we do and support our affordability platform. But what really surprised my digital team is that when we send out a message about Sudan, including the work from the Yale human lab, that has received more positive responses than any other message that we've sent regarding what's going on in America. So it speaks to actually people listening, seeing it, and we have allies like folks in Yale give us that information. People really responded positively to it. So people are open to having more progressive candidates, more people who are speaking to issues beyond just domestic issues as well. So I would please urge you to donate. The maximum you can donate is 3,500. Any more than that, and you'll get me in trouble. So just keep it to that. And I appreciate you so much. Again, please donate, and thank you so much. My name is Mohammed Saifuddin.
Thank you, Mo. That's a tough speech to follow. So I think, first of all, we're very fortunate to have people who are running to become lawmakers in high places, to be able to advocate for Sudan. I think if we prayed, we wouldn't have gotten a better person than Mo to advocate for the issue. He's been a strong ally of the Sudanese conflict. He's been a strong ally of SAPA. He's always been there when he was needed. And we believe strongly and firmly that we need people in higher places to push the envelope, to move the needle, to put the Sudan issue in the front line so people can address it heads on instead of just putting statements out and condemning and the routine stuff that's usually done in those situations. So we ask all of you guys, please donate, support, and those who live in the district, please make sure that you vote for Mo. Thank you, Mo. Okay, so for the next part of the presentation, as we said yesterday, at CORE, we're a professional organization. We do a lot in Sudan, but we absolutely want to do more for our members. And part of that, I don't know if you guys are following or keeping up with the new website. We have few partnerships that were announced. We have the Upwardly Global Initiative outside that helps people find jobs, those who are seeking residency, those who recently moved to the country. We created programs that helps residents navigate either problems or if they want to advance their career, we have mentorship programs. Now I'm going to present to you guys Resolve Company. I saw this company when I was probably a resident, I think, many years ago. And this company specializes in contracts. They help physicians navigate their contracts, negotiations, see if it's fair salary, if you have any questions. Obviously, with all the changes in healthcare that's happening, it's a very important service. We're very proud to announce that we got a 20% discount for all SAPA members through Resolve. And we're going to leave you with the presentation. I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot of burning questions at the end. Okay, Lauren, I would leave it to you. Lauren is a lawyer. She's going to be presenting to us today. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I am Lauren Kaufman. I'm an attorney at Resolve, and we are a company that exclusively works with physicians and physician employment contracts. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll kind of go through, and I have a presentation. We will go through it, but a lot of these times we want to make sure we're answering any questions you might have. So I will leave time for questions at the end. And what we will do is, I'm not sure if we're doing questions in the chat or what the method will be, but we'll just kind of go through and a little bit about myself. I'm in practice. I've been in practice for a little over 13 years, and exclusively at Resolve, doing physician contracts for the last 5. This is about Kyle, the CEO of Resolve. He does, kind of all of the things he focuses a lot on physician contracts, but also helping our clients with estate planning, also like LLCs, things along that line of that nature. But to kind of get started, this is my hook to keep you engaged is what is $3.5 million worth to you? And we'll come to the answer, but that's my kind of, information to kind of keep you engaged there, to be thinking about that. But really, I think when you're starting your job search or even looking to pivot somewhere else, you want to be looking at really who are you going to work for. And this chart is walking through kind of what are the most common employers that we see within the healthcare landscape. And obviously we like the idea of a high guarantee with a lot of autonomy and a lot of upside earning capacity, or ancillaries such as ambulatory surgical centers, real estate partnerships. That's where we would kind of be. As you can see in that quadrant, doesn't really exist. I mean, it can happen, but in the most likely, you're going to find either higher guarantees with maybe less autonomy, less control. Those are going to be your hospital systems, your private equity, your academics. And then generally with a lower guarantee, but a little bit more autonomy on your own, are going to be those private practices. And of course, there's overlap and there's certainly back and forth that happens there. But I think that you really want to, when you're looking at this, is kind of thinking first when you start applying to jobs is what are some of your priorities, right? And kind of, is it that ancillary? Is it the control, the guarantees, and kind of looking at that first. And sometimes I talk to clients, they don't have a preference, and there's no wrong answer there. I think it's a really personal decision. When you're looking at a contract, these are the things that I think are really the kind of high value points that cause the most risk to you as physicians. And when I say that, things that if they are not A, discussed, and B, really outlaid in the agreement, can get you into a troublesome area with the employer. And I put it in these 2 buckets of kind of scheduled duties, essentially day to day, and then your termination. And so with the schedule and the duties, those are things like your locations of practice, days of week, call. I think call tends to be one of the biggest barometers of your day-to-day happiness. And a lot of physicians, especially those just coming out of training, just, kind of call is what it is. But there should be some parameters in there, and parameters meaning things such as it's not going to exceed a certain ratio. If it does, you're going to get paid an incentive to exceed that ratio, those types of things. Um, Outside activities is another that I think depends on the individual physician, but those are things like moonlighting, consulting, locums, some types of side gigs outside of your main employment. And I think the kind of side gig drive is a lot more than it used to be. And so because of that, it tends to be a high priority item in our negotiations, but also is something that I think employers have been slow to kind of acquiesce to those changes. So those are, and I won't go through all of them, but those are when you're looking at your contract, first looking at your day to day. Those are the things I want you to be mindful of. And I know nobody's signing a contract planning to leave with respect to that termination aspect. But it's kind of, you with the, for example, like in family law, you plan the marriage with the divorce because the exits are messy. Even on their best terms, they can be messy. And so there's really 3 or 4 things I want you to be really mindful of when looking at your overall risk is the notice period. And what I mean by that is most contracts are going to end one of 2 ways. That's either with cause or without cause. With cause meaning something bad happened. They breached the contract to you, you breached the contract to them. Pretty rare. Most commonly, it's just going to be without cause. Hey, I want to leave, or in theory, it is reciprocal. Most physician contracts have a notice period of 90 days. So you get there, it's not working out, you can give 90 days notice and leave. There are occasionally some longer periods, 120, 180. I have increasingly seen lock-in periods in contracts, so that's something just to be mindful of. You want to make sure that you can get out without an issue. But also so that you're looking at, okay, how much notice do I have to give? But also, what's my liability when I leave? And that's your malpractice insurance while you're there. Generally is going to be covered by your employer, but are they going to pay for that tail coverage when you leave? Tail coverage is that policy that would cover you after you have left employment, but because of the statutes of limitation, you could be sued for something that happened while you're there after you left. So 1, who's going to pay for that? 2, how long is that tail coverage? And then non-competes. Non-competes are obviously, they've been in the news a lot lately. And, it's, they're going to be in almost all of your contracts. There's definitely been some positive movements. For example, in Texas, the most recent iteration is 1 year and 5 miles, which is 5 miles is really the lowest you're generally going to see. So that was definitely a positive move for physicians. But you still are going to see that within your contracts. And so depending on what your plans are after you leave, you want to either try and negotiate that non-compete on the front end or be okay with it being enforced on the back end. So that's just kind of generally things I want you to be mindful of when you're looking at your contract, and things that I look at when I'm advising physicians on their employment opportunities. And I'm sure you've heard about the FTC ruling. The FTC ruling is currently effectively dead. FTC had said last year that it had determined that non-competes were a unfair restriction on trade, and therefore no for-profit organizations could have a non-compete in it. And the for-profit was a specific area of concern for physicians, and so many are at a nonprofit. That was then appealed and lost. And now the FTC has said we're not going to be appealing further. But these are the things you're looking at with a non-compete: the time, how many years, months, the restricted area. Is it specific employers? Is it miles? And then the scope is also, can you do private practice, or can you go to an academic or an FQHC? And then those are some of the exclusions. But these numbers on this chart here are saying that the average cost to a physician for the non-competes per year was $111,000 and $9.3 million over a physician's career, based on their the non-compete being a restriction on leaving your job, right? Because if you can't leave because you're restricted, well, then you might continue to be underpaid. So those numbers are actually from the FTC ruling, but I think still, while not actively being enforced, likely now or in the future, it is certainly something that is, I think, really had an effect on what we're thinking about kind of across the states, but also generally regarding non-competes and whether or not they make sense. These are some. So with Resolve, we have data that we use, which is MGMA, but also these are contracts that we've looked at. This is just a quick summary to kind of show they run the gamut, right? It depends on your specialty, just depends on where you're at. These are, so we talked about kind of day-to-day work exit, but obviously big question, compensation. And what does your compensation generally include? And that kind of total package. And these numbers are based on contracts that we at Resolve have reviewed, and then, kind of aggregated the data to see what percentage of each of those contracts have these details. And so obviously 95% are going to have a base salary. That other 5% are contracts that come straight out of the gate on a production, pretty few and far between. Or maybe the other couple of percentage are shift rates. But 95% are going to have a base salary, also a production bonus. A production bonus being whether that be RVU or collections. And there will be timing as to when that production bonus comes into play. CME, vacation, signing bonus, relocation. One that I always just think is interesting is the student loan forgiveness. I think that just as a industry has really moved away from giving student loans, kind of front end money for that, and kind of saying apply for PSLF. So that is something that I think as far as offers have changed even 5 years ago. And that's just to kind of give you an overview of what you would be looking at and what we're looking at your compensation components. This is a detail kind of saying the numbers, I know you know this, but that they matter, right? So if we look in this first RVU kind of column, if the base is 200,000 and the market data says the median for everybody else is 200,000, that's great, right? But if they're saying we'll give you a productivity bonus, but it's at 3,000, but your median is but the actual median is 2,500, you're missing out on 500. Those 500 are essentially free. So those numbers, just to kind of play around with that, but obviously what the base can be great, but that threshold can't be looked at in isolation. But when I've been saying market data, what do I mean? There's a lot of compensation surveys out there. We use MGMA, which is a physician compensation survey. There's AMGA, Sullivan Cotter, AAMC. And a lot of the like AMGA, Sullivan Cotter, those are generally going to be from employer data, not the physicians, which is why we like to use MGMA, excuse me. We also have our data, which is an aggregation of all the contracts we've looked at, which is verified, includes all of the points, not just certain things in isolation. And then also job offers, right? So when I'm talking to somebody and I'm saying, MGMA says this, our contracts say this, but also some of, another really good compelling benchmark is what else you have received as a physician. And if you have an offer for 50,000 more elsewhere, let's use that to leverage your current offer you're more interested in. And so all of these things together help us kind of paint a picture of what's fair for physicians. This is my little Price is Right game, or not a game, but what is the median? Is it 517 or 515, 390? Well, they're all the median and this is for one specialty. And that is just to say that surveys such as MGMA and Sullivan Cotter, for example, I think MGMA has like 500 different filters you can do to get to that median. And so it's not so straightforward as here is the median that we're looking at. Is that there's a lot of different ways we can use that data to make sense for you when you're looking at your jobs. And this is one of I think, an interesting trend that we've noticed, just to kind of look at how things have changed in the last couple of years, just the difference in that, there in 2023, RVU production was up, but 2024 down. Similarly, gross charges, total collections, but then on the flip side, the dollar per work RVU went up in 2024 versus 2023. And that's just, I think, some kind of interesting detail to keep in mind. And similarly, total compensation, especially when we're looking at that, negligible reduction, but still that 2024 is an interesting number there. This is, when we say, will you negotiate? It is because we want you to negotiate. I think that I probably hear from employers and my clients that they're being told, hey, this is our standard contract. Everybody signs it. And there are some places where, yes, I have seen they won't change a word, a paragraph, a sentence. Pretty uncommon, though. And all of these are, for example, these where the doctor's name is taken out, those are actual things that we have been told after saying, we're not going to make changes. I just had another negotiation this week where they said, we have X number of physicians, we're not going to be able to make these changes. Having said that, we can make these 3 or 4 or 5 changes. So it is, I think there is a lot of people and are told on that front end, sign, it's fine, everybody signs it. And the thought process is, well, if it was good enough for somebody else, it's good enough for me. But that should not be the case for you. It's really important to advocate for yourself. And that's really, at the end of the day, what we want for you. And then this is where we're talking about with that detail regarding median, right? Fair market value consultant. You're always going to see fair market value both in your conversations with employers, but also in your contract, because your contract per federal law has to be fair market value. There is no generally accepted bright line rule for what fair market value is. So they have these fair market value consultants come in, and fair enough, they have to do their due diligence. I will say they never provide us what we ask. They'll never provide us with those details, because what they're offering you is a range within their fair market value that they've decided is going to be reasonable. And most of the time it is, but it is always interesting and something to keep in mind that the fair market value is not one number that is out there that we're being leveled against. It is a range of numbers that they are just internally looking at. When it is time to review your contract, here are the things that we look at when I'm through Resolve. So looking at your contract comparatively to the things that are included here with the contract review, the tail coverage, right? Sometimes employers will say, well, nobody covers tail. And then we can say, well, actually, according to, these are other people in my specialty, and the large majority are getting it. And then also comparatively, as far as guaranteed compensation and MGMA, just to give you an overview there. So back to my 3.5 million. A lot of times when I'm talking to clients, they will say, yeah, I know it's a little less on the front end, but it'll be fine because I'm going to work it off on the back end, right? And I'm okay with it for right now. And sometimes that's the right move, but I do also want to be mindful of a 10% reduction in your compensation for 25 years is a loss to you of roughly 3.5 million. And so even if it's just 10%, that 10% matters. You're doing important work and you should be paid what you're worth. And so that is that's to my initial kind of 3.5 million. This is the discount code. Please use it if you have any questions on Resolve services. I'm happy to discuss. Otherwise, I'm happy to take some questions.
Yeah, since nobody's coming to the podium, I just thought that we play a game. I want each one of you to open the social media app that use the most, X or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Each one has a cell phone. Please do that. Open your social media app, whatever it is. Come on, guys. Open the social media app. Okay. Whichever app you open, go more for Congress. More for Congress. Come on. More for Congress. You found more for Congress, each of you? Yeah. Okay. Okay. You did? Good. Come on, guys. Okay. Each one of you, please donate $100. Just 100. Not gonna make a big difference. Come on, guys. You guys don't have apps? I'm sure all of you are on Instagram or Facebook. You do have an app. Come on. I know all of you are on Facebook. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
We're gonna do this game again, okay? Thank you, Lauren. We appreciate you being here and all your inputs. I want to make sure if anybody has any questions, please just raise your hand for Lauren, and we'll pass you the mic. Okay, I guess people have a lot to think about. In any event,
There we go.
Resolve. Sorry. Okay, I was gonna say we are partnered with Resolve, and it's a partnership that we really appreciate. Again, it's gonna be a 20% discount to your contract to be reviewed. Doesn't have to be specifically in medicine, but they can help you out with resources, as you guys saw. And guide you to go into that next step of your career. I'm talking this if you're a third-year resident, a junior fellow, you're about to graduate by next summer, you're looking for your job right now, this would be a good opportunity. They're listed in our website. So please feel free to reach out and we'll connect you. And we really appreciate Lauren for being here today and giving us all this information. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you so much. I'll also put my email in the chat. So if you guys have any questions that you want to email, I'm happy to answer. Thank you so much for your time. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Lauren and Resolve for that incredibly valuable session. I hope everyone who that session was relevant to was able to benefit and will be able to do so moving forward. Our next session takes us to the front lines of emergency medical care with emergency medical teams, physicians who volunteer their skills in some of the world's most challenging environments. Medicine without walls isn't just about practicing medicine without infrastructure. It's about compassion without borders, healing without hesitation, and service without limits. Moderating this inspiring session is Dr. Muhammad Bakri. He's joined by an incredible panel of EMT veterans. Dr. Muhammad Tom, Dr. Omar Berni, Dr. Saeed Irfan Qasim, Dr. Wael Abdu, Dr. Siddiq Al-Mahdi, and Dr. Juduf Al-Ni'ma. These physicians have seen humanity at its most vulnerable and responded with extraordinary courage and skill. Their stories will move you, challenge you, and perhaps inspire you to answer the call yourself. Please welcome our session 10 panel.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor and privilege to welcome you in this important session, Medicine Without Walls. Stories from EMTs, from our medical mission to Sudan. Today, we come together not only to reflect on the past, but to learn from it, to be inspired by the courage of our colleagues, and to envision a future shaped by compassion, collaboration, and unwavering commitment to humanitarian service to our country. This panel brings together 5 distinguished physicians who answered the call during some of Sudan's most critical moment. Their contributions through SAPA has left a lasting impact on the Sudan healthcare landscape during this conflict. Each of them bring a unique perspective, informed by their clinician expertise, field experience, and dedication to cross-border medicine services. Allow me briefly to introduce our esteemed panelists here. I will start with Dr. Muhammad Tom, a board-certified neurologist and SAPA member with expertise in EEG, interpretation, inpatient and outpatient neurology, and teleneurology, bring clinical excellence with digital innovation. Dr. Juduf Al-Ni'ma, assistant professor of medicine and critical care at University of Pittsburgh, Medical Center, a SAPA member and frontline responder who lead the training in point of care ultrasound, enhancing local capacity in high acuity care. And Mr. Wael Abdu, a neurosurgeon, a national program director of neurosurgery at RCSI in Ireland. So is not SAPA member, but Wael Abdu joined our AMT mission from Ireland, exemplifying the spirit of Sudanese solidarity and global medicine partnership. And Dr. Siddiq Al-Mahdi, my colleague here, a hospitalist at VCU Health, an associate director of community service for SAPA, a tireless advocate for community-driven medical mission, and key architect of SAPA EMT initiatives. And lastly, but not least, is Dr. Sayyid Irfan Qasim Ali, is MD in anesthesiology and pain management, based in Griffin, Texas, representing the JODA organization. Dr. Ali brings deep expertise in pain medicine and critical care delivery in complex humanitarian setting. Please join me to welcome all of these. Before I go deep, I want to speak in Arabic. في وجود وائل عبده هنا الجراح الشاعر والأديب. يسعدنا ويشرفنا أن نفتتح اليوم نافذة من نوافذ الأمل ونلتقي في هذا اللقاء الاستثنائي بنخبة من أطبائنا السودانيين وغير السودانيين بالخارج الذين أتوا ليلبوا نداء الوطن في لحظة فارقة حين ضاقت السبل واشتدت الحاجة، فكانوا هم رسل الرحمة وأجنحة العافية ضمن بعثات سابا طبية إلى عمق السودان الجريح في زمن الحرب والوجع، حين خفت أصوات الحياة في بعض المناطق. كان لأطقم سابا صوت مختلف، صوت يهمس بالأمل، ينطق بالمهنية، يزرع الشفاء في جسد الوطن المنهك. لم يكتفوا بتقديم العلاج للمرضى والجرحى، بل كانوا شعلة تنير درب الكوادر الصحية المحلية بالتدريب والدعم والمرافقة المهنية. نجتمع اليوم لنروي حكايات من الميدان، حيث اختلطت نبضات القلوب بنبضات الأجهزة، وتساوت المسافات بين الوطن والقربة، وتجلت الإنسانية في أبهى صورها. ندعوكم جميعا لتكونوا جزء من هذا العطاء النبيل، وأن تمدوا أيديكم بالعلم والخبرة والرحمة، فالمسيرة لم تنتهي والنداء ما زال يتردد في الأفق. من سيكمل المشوار؟ من سار في درب على نهج طبه تضاء له الدنيا ويزرع له الأثر. كونوا أنتم هذا الأثر الجميل في رحلة شفاء وطنكم. نسأل الله إنه يعني يعجل بصلاح حال بلدنا وحال أهلها، ومعا نصنع الفرق. معا في سابا نصنع الفرق للسودان الجريح. Okay, so together these voices represent the full spectrum of the SAPA or SAPA lead emergency response, where medicine transcends border affiliates and limitations. To guide our conversation, I will pose 5 questions to each of our panelists here. And these questions are designed to explore the challenges faced and the insight gained and the collective vision for future emergency medical response in Sudan and beyond. Let me start here first. While we conduct this session, I invite you all to scan the QR code behind me. I think it is a screen now. Apply to the future medical mission, please. So let's start and begin with Dr. Mohammed Tom, and then I will proceed to hear from each of our panelists here. I invite you all to listen closely, reflect deeply, and consider how each of us can contribute to this shared mission of healing without borders. The first question is, what was the most unexpected challenges you faced during your AMT mission, and how did you navigate through it?
So thank you first, Mohammed Bakri, for the wonderful introduction, and thanks to SAPA for providing the opportunity and for a great meeting. I'm sure we all are enjoying the meeting, and I mean, I had the privilege of going on 2 medical trips this year to Sudan. I went to Port Sudan in February, and I get my experience from the trip in February motivated me to go to Gadarif in September. So we actually just went on the second trip 2 months ago, and it was a trip really that left I think a permanent imprint on me. I think I grew and learned from this trip clinically and professionally and personally. I think as much as I think I benefited as much as anybody else. I tried to to benefit. And so your question was about what were some of or what was one unexpected challenge. I think probably the biggest challenge was logistical. And I think especially when we went to Gadarif, I think we underestimated how difficult it was to actually reach Gadarif. And when we went to Port Sudan, it was much easier. And obviously Port Sudan, has an international airport. But actually reaching Gadarif is a challenge in itself. And I think the practical implication this had was, let's say, the useful part of the trip where we could actually provide a service was truncated because of these logistical hurdles. It took us 2 days to get to Gadarif, or actually 3 days, counting international travel. And I think my colleagues, some of them actually needed an extra day. So if you're planning a 1-week trip and 4 days are spent traveling, that obviously impacts what you can do, right? And I think this was something that at some level frustrated our colleagues on the ground, because they obviously promoted this trip, and they had patience for us, and they had a lot of planning went into this, and we had people coming from far away places to see us, but we were really limited by the amount of time we had. So we were able to have 3 full days of clinical work, and they had a busy referral clinic schedule for us. And me and the team, I think, were able to see more than 300 patients in the clinic in those days, in those 3 days. Another unexpected thing was, so the clinic was really, the emphasis was epilepsy. We wanted to, they had a huge need for us to see epilepsy patients. And just to put things in context, really, Gadarif is a state that had a population of 2 million before the war, and now has more than 5 million people. So the internal displaced population is actually more than the original population of Gadarif. And you can imagine the strain this puts on the already, strained medical services. And many patients relied on the major medical hubs in Madani, which is not far from Gadarif, and Khartoum. And of course, these are out of service. And so Gadarif doesn't actually have Gaddarif Hospital doesn't have, I think it's a 500-bed hospital without a neurologist, without a neurosurgeon. So you're really expecting, medicine and pediatric specialists, or, medicine and pediatric departments to manage complex neurology cases. So they had a lot of patience for us, and we obviously, couldn't meet, the demand, or we probably could meet all their expectations, obviously. But I was also surprised by how much pediatric neurology they had for us. So I think it wouldn't be an exaggeration if I said at least 50% of the patients we saw were actually pediatric. So I'm trained in epilepsy, cross-trained in pediatric epilepsy, but I'm not by any stretch a pediatric neurologist or pediatric epileptologist. But I saw patients as young as 2 years, and obviously, they don't have. I mean, I think having a pediatric neurologist in Sudan was a luxury to begin with, because I don't think there was more than a couple of them in the country. So yeah, I mean, I think the logistical challenge had a big impact on the amount of time we had at our disposal. But I think we were probably really taken aback by the huge need and the lack of any real, specialist expertise on the ground.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I think, yeah, most of these challenges, especially the logistic one, it's maybe like we expect that, but like the huge number of pediatric patients is not expected at all. Yeah, and the need is still is needed there, and that's why we need like to encourage all of you like to apply for medical mission to Sudan. I'll move to you, Otuf. Although you are based in Port Sudan, but I think there is like many challenges you face it during that time.
Thank you for the opportunity. Everybody can hear me. Probably I will add a different perspective to what Dr. Muhammad that Tom shared. We were together during the first mission. I think I was one of the few that mainly focused on educational efforts. I did not provide any patient care. I'm interested in medical education, and I'm a clinician educator by training and interest. So the project that I had was point of care ultrasound training for healthcare workers, not only in the ICU, which is my training, but in all settings. And probably the most challenging thing that I can think of is just to conduct the workshop itself. Obviously, there are technical struggles that you can come across, but I have to emphasize here that the SAPA team in Port Sudan is extremely helpful. They've been very helpful. You have probably seen some of the faces last night and yesterday on the documentary, and I've met all of them, and they're very dedicated and committed to help you. So anything that I needed, whether it's materials or even just one day the projector wasn't working and we had to delay the workshop for almost like 45 minutes or 1 hour, they were very helpful to come in. And even when we did not solve the problem, I would say that the participants themselves were very flexible and patient, and because they were very eager to wait for the workshop itself, they did not mind that the projector wasn't working actually, and we end up just using my laptop. I just turned it over and we just end up doing the session very easily. So it's important to keep in mind that you have to be adaptable when you go over there, just like what Dr. Muhammad was saying. You have to be really ready that you're going to be faced with different challenges, but no matter what it is, use the support that you have within SAPA team over there, and then obviously the local team from like the ministry, whoever's are helping with the work that you're doing over there. And you yourself be ready not to get frustrated by this, because if you get frustrated, it might impact the work you're actually going to do. And remember that there is a lot to be done, and just be ready, be flexible, be adaptable. And I think eventually you will end up being able to deliver what you intend to do.
Yeah, indeed. I think the Sudan team is like make everything easy for us. Make everything, even if it's impossible, like to be impossible during this an impossible situation. Move to you, Mr. Weil, and I think it is like by default for you. It is unexpected challenges, like from default. I think you will be already ready for unexpected things when you start anything related to this medical mission or like to delivering care in anywhere.
Thanks, Mohammed, and thanks, SAPA. And I'm very pleased to be among these very high esteemed panelists today. I was actually planning, I know you said we're going to talk half in English and half in Arabic, but I was hoping that I'll be able to speak in Irish as well, if you allow me. No, I'm only joking. I'm only joking. The challenges weren't really far from what Mohammed and Qutuf were saying a minute ago, but I'm just going to add, just so that we don't repeat ourselves. Obviously, neurosurgery is expensive. Neurosurgery is complex, and there isn't anything simple about neurosurgery. But our attitude was from the start, since we were invited in the first place to go to the mission, was the attitude of we have to make this happen. And putting that in mind, I think made it very easy for us that we're not going to be giving up. Unfortunately, part of the neurosurgery is the fascination about equipment, navigation, all the kind of gadget that us as neurosurgeons, the psychopath who are very fascinated by radiology and localization and technology and advances. I have to leave that behind. But actually, the main unexpected challenge for me was at a personal level. This was my first time practicing neurosurgery in Sudan in this particular unexpected time, and these particularly very difficult circumstances, and trying to dissect myself as a professional from the struggle. Yes, I treated patients. Yes, I was related to them somehow. Yes, I was a little bit compassionate, sympathetic, or empathetic, but it's totally different when you are treating people of your same skin. So I think it took me 2 days at least to try to kind of step back and not be emotionally involved in these. A small aspect of the unexpected challenges was the disappointment of some patients who could not get their care because we weren't equipped to provide it. I think that was another aspect, but I think we managed somehow to divert them to the right path. And in my opinion, they still benefited from us.
Yeah, indeed. I totally agree that the most challenging or the most important challenge now is the need, is still the need. There is a huge need, and there is a continuous need for medical care for different specialty. Go to you, Sadiq. I think the challenges to you, Sadiq, maybe like more different from, like far different from all the panelists. Maybe you share the same challenges with Dr. Irfan, because this is your first time to go to Sudan and give a medical care.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for having me today. I'm humbled to be on this panel with these amazing physicians. So I thank SAPA for this. Yeah, as far as challenges, I'd say my challenges were multifactorial. Number one, I'll address the fact that I've never gone to Sudan as a clinician. I've only gone to Sudan for vacations growing up. Last time I went to Sudan was 2018, before COVID, before all of this. So that was a big challenge in itself, like a medical system that I'm not familiar with at all. Like I've spent my entire life in the US system, and it was just very different. Even like the language, not even like, yeah, Arabic isn't my first language, but even like beyond the Arabic, like even in the English, like the terms they would use were things I wasn't used to. It took me a while to figure out what a registrar was, so things like that. But yeah, so that was one major challenge, is just not being used to the system of Sudan itself. And then of course, Gadaref State, which is a lower resource area. itself, like that's a situation I'd never been in before. So that was a very challenging situation. But luckily, I was surrounded by a lot of great physicians who helped make it a lot easier. The other place that I faced challenges was I was also involved as organizing. Everyone here has been involved in organizing the mission, but I was kind of behind the scenes with Dr. Mohammed Bakri, seeing kind of like the logistical side of like making sure that everyone's schedule is on point, making sure that everything works out with Al Jawazat and Kida. So I was faced with a lot of unexpected challenges with that, just because things in Sudan are very unexpected. Like things are very turbulent; they change quite quite drastically, and you kind of have to kind of adapt to whatever the Sudanese government is doing at the at time. Was when it comes to like arranging flights and arranging all that stuff. And then again, when it came to recruiting volunteers, we actually, so this started off as the mission I went on with Dr. Mohammed Atom and Dr. Wael went on the first wave of this, was a neurosurgical mission initially. But then we ended up expanding it to neurology because Dr. Wael had a lot of great insights of things that needed to be addressed that weren't being addressed on purely neurosurgical terms. So that's when we added neurology. And then unfortunately, we actually were not able to recruit enough neurologists. So we decided to actually expand that to internal medicine, which is my specialty, and then pulmonary critical care as well to get more volunteers. So that was another unexpected challenge, is just the number of volunteers and people last minute, unfortunately, not being able to make it, which I understand that things come up, but that was unexpected.
Thank you, Siddiq. Over to you, Dr. Said, and let me first thank you for bringing your expert and your global partnership and support to our organization first and to our Sudan and Sudanese people. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. So first of all, thank you very much for having us here, and thank you very much for this amazing partnership. We have signed an MOU with SAPA. We completely stand with SAPA and Sudanese people. But I will be very honest that just like rest of the non-Sudanese Muslim world, I was, and our organization was not aware of the plight of the Sudanese people, and I take full ownership and responsibility for that oversight. It was not until WHO, because we have been doing medical missions inside Gaza. We have been to Gaza several times, Belize, Cameroon, Honduras, Pakistan. It was not until WHO asked us that, do you guys want to go to Sudan? Because there are not too many international EMTs. All the other big organizations don't want to go. And as an organization and as our personalities, we have pretty decent risk appetite. We are, because the life and death belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When the time comes, your time comes. But we were really not aware of it. And that's when we started reading about it. But as non-Sudanese, we were just bumping into the walls to actually get into Sudan through WHO until, alhamdulillah, a local friend, a mutual friend of ours, connected me to brother Ahmed Hassan, who's a surgical oncologist in Dallas. He connected me to brother Yasser. And as soon as I got connected with Dr. Yasser, things changed, alhamdulillah. He said, brother, let me take care of you, inshallah ta'ala. And then things got very smooth. We were gonna go to Port Sudan, but then Wad Madani got liberated. And WHO asked us that you want to go there. And brother Yasser said that, brother, it's just got liberated like a week ago. It may not be the best area. Well, we said, we're okay. We'll go, inshallah. But alhamdulillah, we got in there. With the help of them, we got the visas and everything. Otherwise, there is no way that non-Sudanese guys can get access to Sudan. It's very difficult, unfortunately. At least in Gaza, the situation is different, but the process of entry is streamlined. But in Sudan, unfortunately, it's not. And brother Yasser told us that you will be taken care of over there. So now we are on our way as two non-Sudanese guys, me and Dr. Omar, and we got stopped in Jeddah. They took us aside. They said, it doesn't make sense. Two non-Sudanese guys trying to go to Sudan. Everyone else is leaving Sudan. What are you guys trying to do? So they investigated and interrogated us a lot, and finally they let us go. And then we landed at the airport, and Brother Yasser had told us that, everything will be perfect. And there is this young doctor, Dr. Asma in her 20s, standing at the airport to receive us. And she said, I'm going to be taking you guys all the way to Wad Madni and coming back. And we looked at each other. We said, like, this is what he found out of all of Sudan to take care of us in Sudan. And our confidence level dropped. But I said, what, it is what it is. But later on, alhamdulillah, we started calling her Mother of Sudan. Wherever you go, whether it's Kasala or Underman or Wad Madani, people will know her. And she had such an amazing personality. She coordinated it so well that I don't think anyone else could have done it that way. And then we reached the Wad Madani, and Dr. Faisal, the pediatric surgeon who was going to host us and was the main guy, he was suffering from malaria and dengue. And his staff was taking care of him, and they wanted him to go to Kasala because he was not doing well. But he said, I'm not going to leave behind these guys who are coming for me. I'm going to stay here regardless. So then we thought, okay, well, the guy who was going to take care of us, he himself is very ill. And then they said, oh, we're going to take you to the hospital in the evening to take a look. But the hospital has been closed. This will be the first day tomorrow. So we went to the hospital, and there were still buckets of paint and some guys working. It was empty. So we looked at each other. We said, this is not going to happen tomorrow. There is no way. And even MOH told us, they said, oh, you guys can go see some patients, because I think everyone had low confidence level that it will be more like consultation. And WHO guys told us, they said, oh yeah, you guys can do clinics and everything. We came back, and Dr. Faisal asked us to come to the room. He said, brother, how is everything? We said, brother, there is nothing there. He said, wallahi, trust me. You go at 8 in the morning, it will be ready. We said, okay, well, we are here, we'll go. And well, we got there at 8 in the morning, and there was a crowd all the way outside. There were 300-400 people. And we went inside. It was full of staff with anesthesia technicians, or everyone was ready. And we did not know how that happened, but it did happen. So that is the power of, mashallah, this organization. Amazing work. And alhamdulillah, in 4 days over there, we saw 680 patients. We did 32 orthopedic surgeries. It was just 2 of us, and with the help of the local staff and everything. And it was the most amazing experience. And we thought that we were able to help a few people, but obviously there's a lot more people who needs help. But the essence of this long story was that, mashallah, the on-ground team of SAPA, whether across the board, wherever you go, is most amazing volunteers, most amazing people, and they know how to get the job done. And it was one of the most well-executed trip for us, although it started from ground zero, and we were very successful, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Let me take this chance to again thank you our colleague in Sudan, Dr. Asma, Dr. Faisal, Mr. Faisal Nugud, and جميع الزملاء الموجودين في السودان، لأنه حقيقة without them يعني we never we can do anything يعني. I will start with you. Delving to the second question. And the second question is, how do you see the role of AMT evolving in the context of the Sudan healthcare system?
So I think one of the sharp contrasts, which because the only place you can compare it to Gaza because of the war and everything. I think the sharpest contrast was the amount of the local staff and their training. Because in Gaza, because there are medical missions going in from England, France, Switzerland, America, there's a lot of influx. And those local guys, they get exposed to all these kind of physicians and all these kind of expertise. So their level of knowledge and their level of expertise is pretty good. But unfortunately in Sudan, because first of all, it's completely forgotten. The not by non-Muslims don't even know. Most of the non-Sudanese Muslims don't know about it, and it's completely forgotten, and you can see it once you go there. So there is not too much influx of healthcare providers with their expertise of like everyone over here in this panel. So the local guys, between all the civil wars and all this stuff, the local guys, their training is not that up to speed, unfortunately. So I think there is a lot of room for capacity building over there. Just like, you know, when we were there, like there were all the anesthesiologists in Wad Madani had left Wad Madani. So they were like these anesthesia students. So on our first day, we try not to do general anesthesia in all these situations anyways, because you don't know. But one guy really needed it. So I asked the girls, I said, do you guys have this, this, and this? She said, yes, we have it. And then I asked for some other, she said, yes, we have it. I said, Sarah, she said, yes. So we put the guy to sleep. And then next thing, the ventilator was working and now it stopped working. Then I asked her for the medication. She said, yes, we have it. I said, where is it? She said, it's all at the pediatric hospital. I said, okay. Well, I thought it meant it was here. But I'm just saying, like, unfortunately, those are the challenges which you experience. But I think there's a lot of room for these EMTs, all different specialties, to go in and help and educate the guys. But the local physicians and the residents and fellows are amazingly smart and intelligent people. They have the intelligence there. They just need the nurturing to be done. Because everyone who worked with us, they were all non-orthopedic guys, or they were all pediatric residents of Dr. Faisal. But by end of the first day, they all were running the orthopedic clinics in an amazing way, and they were really triaging it the best way possible. So I think more medical missions with more expertise, more specialists to go in to help educate the local guys, because of the war and civil war and all those things, those guys have not been exposed to it for a long time, unfortunately.
Totally agree. Yeah, focusing on capacity building is very important. Yeah, although we have like the two goal for the medical mission is like giving the direct medical care and the capacity building services to our local HCPs there. Go to you, Sadiq, with the same question.
Yeah, so inshallah, I see this continuing to include different specialties. I think surgical need is a big need. We've noticed, especially in the different parts of Sudan need different specialties. So inshallah, we can expand to different parts of Sudan. I really think telehealth and telemedicine is a place we can really incorporate into our EMTs, where you can have people volunteer their time and they don't, like Dr. Mohammed was mentioning, not everyone has more than a week or more than 2 weeks to dedicate to this. So I think telemedicine is something we can incorporate, and also like education virtually as well is something I can see.
Totally agree. Yeah, we have like really big challenges in terms of infrastructure for the like the internet and everything, but I think still there is like a chance for telehealth and virtual meeting, like to help a lot in capacity building in different places in Sudan. Go to you.
I think I agree. I think there is a room for telemedicine. We have been doing this, maybe slightly fragmented over the years since the 2018 revolution, through various initiatives, particularly led by the diaspora. But I think it's ultimately we had to emulate what we've been doing in the past and master it in order to facilitate our EMT. Is there room for more? I think there is, but we have to be a little bit realistic on what are the real aims for these. Are you trying to build infrastructure? Are you trying to just fill the gap, or are you trying just to try to see if you can provide burst impulses of a certain gap in particular specialities. So you just have to really be a little bit careful, because I know most of these missions are costly, and you need to have some sort of cost effectiveness studies to vet this in the future. But just based on the need, I think I agree with Irfan and Sadiq, there is a room for more. And the local stakeholders, particularly, I'm not talking about the Ministry of Health or the government, but your local stakeholders, particularly medical students and the local trainees, these are your assets in order to establish this for the future, because they are the jewel in this EMT.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think you both of you can give us like a visibility overview for that, because I think one of your capacity building services that you give it to the doctor is including some sort of visual or like health or like visual things connection through the lab and through the app itself.
So before I go, I don't want to repeat what they mentioned, but I think maybe we can take a step back. And if you think of the EMT itself, when you hear the missions that all of us were involved in, it's not necessarily the typical EMT mission that you see when you hear stories from Gaza, for instance, when people go and address deliver like trauma service and actually be there and address truly emergency. I'm not saying this is probably like a modified version of a true EMT, and that's why I like to call it maybe medical mission during crisis or slash under resource areas. Because if you think of it like that, when you come and think of how you can move forward, a step forward, you want to move forward from giving a little bit of the emergency care at the beginning to trying to think of what else can we do that is more sustainable. And that a lot of the speakers yesterday talked to this about importance of trying to incorporate some of this into building primary care services. And now you're thinking of addressing a broader health need. You're thinking about, we have to start thinking about the child and maternal health, like all of that. I think it branches from the immediate need, which can vary. Like Wael was mentioning, like we need to know what exactly we're addressing. But I think it's important to switch the mindset from addressing an emergent need to trying to think of what next can be done. That's number one. And then number two, I wanted to emphasize that the capacity building in form of education and training. This is a very important role that we can play in it. And I believe it's a low-hanging fruit for all of us in this room who are practicing or were trained here or elsewhere, that got the privilege of having all of these skills that we can go back home. It's a very low-hanging fruit that I encourage all of us to think about. When you see how much you're investing in building local healthcare workers' skills and knowledge and leverage what they already have, then you can understand the impact that can have. The models of like train the trainer are very easy and to understand and I think implement. When I created the workshop that I delivered, which is the point of care ultrasound, I was thinking of the immediate need, but I was also thinking of the long-term need, that this is a skill that people are going to need. It was combination of lectures and hands-on experience and providing machines that are portable and handheld, that they can log in image in software, that I'll be able to log in and give feedback and so on. So I'm just giving an example of how there's a whole lot of ideas that can come up, that you can come up with, that can be easily implemented, and it would have an immediate impact as well as a long-lasting and impact. I also think there is a role that we might not have necessarily explored in how, if you think of the medical missions and the EMT, it's not just physicians as well. Like there is role for nurses and everybody in the healthcare system, and there is a role of also like looking at health like surveillance and data collection. Like all of that it's a good opportunity to think of ahead. Like we can think of it as a future opportunities that we can build on, where you move a step further in leveraging all of these skills and talents that you have, not just us, but also the local folks. And you will never be able to achieve this without actually fostering strong relationship on the ground And remember, I'm just going to close with this last point. Remember, when you go there, you're not going to save the world. That should not be the mindset. The mindset should be that you're going there to work with other people. You have to think of their needs, and you have to build whatever you want to build after getting some feedback or some input from them. You're not going there only to fulfill personally. At least I'm going to speak on myself. Like, it's not just that, but it's also you are working together in order to build something bigger. I'm just going to close it there.
We go there to save the world. Yeah, there's a neurosurgeon in the room. We think we're gods.
Just to add to her last point, I think this is so important. Like, every time we send a team to Gaza and we are doing the briefing, I tell them at the end, I said, whatever we told you, if you forget everything, please just do remember one thing. Once you go inside, don't judge the healthcare workers. Do not judge the neurosurgeon who is next to you and tell him, oh my God, no, I don't like doing it this way. Do not judge the ICU guy, because you have no idea what those guys have gone through, and you have no ideas what kind of work they have gone through and what kind of achievements and things like that they have done. So absolutely agree. You just have to give a lot of respect. And if you have any kind of feedback or something, you just have to do it in the nicest possible way, which does not come as you being a judge of their work.
Yeah, indeed. And that's why we give a chance, like, for all people, like healthcare professional, health alliance, and all of them in our like sign up application here. It's like it's contain a chance for all people that who can help can apply to these medical missions. Back to you, Muhammad Tom. In the same context, how do you see the role of teleneurology in like shaping or like the visibility of it in Sudan during these situations?
Yeah, so I think obviously telemedicine, it has a role. I mean, and telemedicine has a role everywhere. I mean, we see the proliferation of telemedicine even in a resource-rich country like the US, right? And so, I mean, I think obviously telemedicine has to play a role, but I would say the biggest priority really has to be, and I want to echo some of the points the panel mentioned, capacity building, because the essence of medicine still is taking a good history and doing a proper exam. And if you don't build up the clinical skills and the basic the medical education, you won't really, everything else becomes, I think, secondary. And I think what I realized, going to Sudan after, and seeing the impact of the war is, I think the biggest, impact or maybe a huge impact was, the brain drain of specialists and people who have experience in leaving. It has a big downstream effect, because you have medical trainees, you have registrars in medicine who are not really going to be trained because there's nobody there to train them. So you are a medicine registrar and you're trying to take care of a neurology patient, but you don't really have the training or skill set to do that. So whatever else you provide, so SAPA, provided us a great platform. We were able to give people medications free of charge. We were able to do MRIs free of charge. But if you don't have the right diagnosis, what are you prescribing and why are you prescribing this medication? And then, of course, there is a responsibility. Like, if you are going to see a patient on a medical mission who has a chronic condition, you're actually taking responsibility, because what's the follow-up going to be? Who is gonna who's equipped to see that patient again in follow-up? What if something happens? What if they develop a complication? So going back to the point, I think the priority, I think, before telemedicine would be to train the people on the ground, to build up their skills, to competency level where they are able to take care of patients and where you can actually have an intelligent conversation, like, you trust in their triage of patients, who is going to be seen by telemedicine and what, the telemedicine is going to be complementary, right? So I think emphasizing medical education, building capacity, that's, I think that has to come first.
Yeah, I totally agree. Uh, it's like it's very important like to be that in like in person things. But we talk about the telehealth here, like to close the gap. If someone, for example, here cannot go there in person, so there is a chance for him to give like a direct medical care, like a medical care through telehealth, or like even give capacity building training through virtual meeting or virtual training. That's I think that's can close also like a big gap here. Let me go to the third question and start with you, Hamad Tom. Can you share? Uh, I think that's I will left it to the last question. I will go to the question four. So, what strategy do you believe are most effective for building sustainable local capacity in a crisis settings like that what is happening in Sudan right now?
Yeah, I think it's important to have a collaborative approach and build a partnership. I mean, and I think one big use of a medical mission like this is that you actually build a bond, right? A human bond. I mean, you meet people on the ground, you become part of their experience, they know you, you know them, you develop a human connection. And you see things on the ground because you can never actually imagine how, Gaddafi actually, the hospital runs without actually being there, right? And so you see how things operate, you see people on the ground, you make a connection, and you identify needs. Some needs, they will obviously have their, agenda and their priorities, but you come to an understanding having actually been there, right? And it was my first time to actually practice neurology in Sudan, right? So and so it's a different experience. And medicine is the same, but it's very different, right? So you realize that the local realities are different. I remember, and Sadiq was with us in the clinic when we were surprised how the lack of privacy. You have there's so many patients that you probably can't see the amount of patients that are waiting outside, right? And people understand that you're here for a limited time, and there's a huge emphasis on seeing a lot of patients. But there's a responsibility, right? If you have trainees with you and you have people that are not familiar with neurology and are not used to taking care of patients like this, actually, if you think of it, the amount of time you spend training them, going through how to take a proper history, going through how you think, how your thought process is when you see a seizure patient or a stroke patient. I realized that was actually more a better use of my time than trying to see many patients, because you're dealing with people who are going to come back to the clinic, right? Who are going to have probably medical emergencies, are going to be on medication, maybe for the rest of their life. So I think having an understanding of what the actual need is and having a structure, like, what are the priorities? How can we improve medical education? How can we bring, these medicine registrars are going to be consultants and they're going to be taking care of neurology patients. How do we make sure they're at a level where they are comfortable managing patients and know who to refer to you? And so if you're running, if you have the ability then to do telemedicine, who are they going to triage? Do they know who is sick and who needs to see you? And can they manage much of this? Because in reality, there's going to be a neurology shortage in Sudan for the foreseeable future. So I think having a structure and knowing what to, what to focus on and what would be the best use of the resources that you have.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and defines the target audience or like the most like in need audience for capacity building is very important, like in shaping and like guaranteeing the stability of these capacity building services. Go to you.
I don't want to repeat what Muhammad and Tom was saying. So beside the if you think of local capacity, like capacity building, beyond the individuals, it also has to do with the place, right? And this speaks a lot to what SAPA is already doing in terms of infrastructure, like renovating hospitals or even building new hospitals or clinic. Because without this, you can't necessarily deliver care or services. So I think that's a big component that it's great that the work is already being done. I will piggyback on what you were saying about the capacity building. So, for instance, from my project, the ultrasound workshop, initially it started by me wanting to do something, and I didn't think patient care. I don't know why I didn't think patient care was something that I wanted to do initially. Maybe because I'm really passionate about medical education. So what I did is I reached out to someone from the SAPA team in Port Sudan to help me get me in touch with someone like anesthesiologist, registrar who's working there, and then we both spoke multiple times. So you can consider that as an informal needs assessment, which is crucial when you're like building an educational curriculum or even if you're doing research or whatnot. And so we end up creating a long list of things that they needed some training in or educational activity on. And then I went back and reviewed things and sort of got things out of the list and shortened it a little bit. And then we kept talking. But without that part, again, I'm going to re-emphasize what I said earlier. If I had just woken up and said, I'm going to do the ultrasound without speaking to anyone, without making sure that it's a need that they actually want, like a need, and then something that they're interested in and something that is going to be beneficial on the short and the long run, I would have been delusional to deliver this. So you have to, so we have to emphasize the importance of communicating appropriately and working with the team on the ground and getting feedback. And whatever we integrate, we need to also be humble to the fact that you're dealing with a burden system. So you have to be, your goal should be not to overburden it and rather take off some of that load. So whatever you're proposing to deliver when we're talking about the capacity building, you have to be mindful of that and modify and edit and change your plan over and over until it's something that everybody is in agreement that this is what they want, and mostly the folks over there.
Yeah, I can't agree more on that. Yeah, that's why me and Sadiq, we start first with identifying the need, doing the need assessment first, like to identify where we go. We'll go for direct medical care or for capacity building or for both, and which like sub in each of these to optimize this medical mission and before we go there, because we have, like, as you know, the limited resources for everything. To you, Mr. Weil.
Well, I don't have much to add, but I think what Kutuf was saying earlier, actually, in the previous question, was actually very true. Medical missions, and she corrected us, this is not really an emergency, because we're not dealing with trauma and we're not dealing with acute or hyperacute conditions. It's mainly kind of the lazy, unscheduled, or maybe semi-scheduled care so you know exactly what you're dealing with. But I think the two very important thing is that you shouldn't be burdening the or overworking the system that is already actually very fragile. So what you do should be in complement to what they can do. Al-Gadarif is not a place for pioneer surgery. As much as I'd love to have my pictures in the back edition of the SAPA newsletter saying that this is the first whatever ever microsurgical skull base, as much as I'd love that, that's not the place to invent anything new, to pioneer anything. It's not the place, it's not the time for that. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to fill the gap. You're trying to target the low-lying fruits, the medical education, the capacity building. You're trying to be very mindful to the local partners, particularly the surgeons. This is a very important point that Arfan was saying earlier about that you cannot judge these. And believe me when I tell you, surgeons, not judging, it's impossible. It's intrinsic in us. We have to judge because that's the competitiveness of the actual specialty. But you have to be mindful of those people because you were never going to be in their shoes. The decision they made 2 days ago to operate on that way and using that instrument, you're never going to be in that situation. So you have to be mindful of that. I think there's still scope for improvement in terms of improvement of these medical missions. I think there's still, and the personal story that comes with it is just enormous. But it has to address their own needs. You can't dictate, you can't decide for them. It has to be within collaboration. I think one part, and I probably wrote about this without talking to Ali or Yasser or the board when I came back from Al-Gadarif in July, is this platform of medical missions, and I know our colleagues in Qatar have done the same, on that basis in the diaspora would actually bring the cost down and would fill bigger space in terms of networking. So you don't have to rely on your own member. In this particular mission, you can rely on 2 or 3, the likes of Ireland, UK, Qatar, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And I think that will bring the cost down and it will increase the network. It might be a little bit difficult in terms of organizational, but I think it will be a calendar-based in your assessment, led by SAPA and other diaspora groups. And I think it probably will reach out for more buyout in these scenarios.
Thank you.
So regarding building sustainable strategies to help these missions become more successful in the future, going off of what Mr. Wael was saying, I actually do think it would be helpful if we could work with other organizations. I was actually approached from an organization that actually wanted to do cochlear implants in Sudan, and they were hoping to work with us. So something like that, like the same way we did with your organization, like having other organizations come in and they're able to provide the manpower and coordinate with our staff on the ground, which are great. The other thing I wanted to comment on was feedback. So everyone in here is like a medical trainee, so feedback is big in the medical field, and I think that's the most important thing we can do. Like Dr. Ghutuf mentioned, you're not there to change the world, but one thing you are there to do is build relationships so you can carry like these missions forward in a way that's sustainable. So when you get feedback from people who've gone on the missions, it really expands the things you can work on. I keep going back to like the fact that we opened up to neurology after the first mission, but to me, we were addressing a need that wasn't addressed at all after the first mission. Like so many of the patients there were patients who had epilepsy and were out of their anti-epileptics and were in horrible conditions and were expecting surgeries to be done. So that was a feedback-driven change that we addressed. So feedback is a big thing we need to work on from the staff on the ground and the people who go on the missions. And then lastly, with regards to training, so I do think it would be helpful if we had some kind of like training for people who go to the missions with the people on the ground and the staff that we're working on. مثلا في القضاء, if we had some kind of like training modules ahead of time, so we're all on the same page before we actually met them, I think that would be more sustainable as well.
So, Dr. Irfan, I will little bit modify the question for you.
and added or combined it with the second question. So the question will be like how you better engage more, how we can better engage more partnership, volunteer in future SAPA mission and mentorship effort. And the second question is, can you share a moment from the field that reaffirms that your commitment to these type of missions?
So I strongly believe that every time you go on any of these medical missions, you get more out of them than you give. And I think it's true for all of us. And when people like us, we come back, people say, oh, these guys are amazing or heroes, but I don't consider that anyone going to Sudan and coming back and going to Gaza and coming back is hero. I think the guys who are there are the real heroes. And if you sit down and listen to their stories, those are the guys who have really gone through it. And that's why I have the utmost respect for those people. Just to go on a side note, like this time around, like a couple of months ago when we were in Gaza, there was a neurosurgeon, Dr. Hasham, and in the evening, we saw him like walking around with a kid, like 16-year-old kid. So I asked Dr. Hashim, I said, Dr. Hasham, who's this? He's your friend? He said, no, he's not my family member. Like 6 months ago, he came with a large caliber bullet at C6, C7 spinal canal. He said, there was no other surgeon available. I prayed 2 rakas. I made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that there is no other hope other than me. And he said, I just took it out. And we said, what happened? He said, by will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing happened and the kid is okay. And now for last 6 months, every evening he goes and he gives him his physical therapy himself. I don't think there's any US surgeon, at least not me. I am not at that caliber to do any service like that. So those are the kind of people that you're dealing with. So I think and the other, the low hanging fruit thing, I just want to say that there are very small interventions that each one of us in our specialized capacity can do to make a huge impact. Like when we went there, it told us that the post-op wound infection rate is about 30 to 50%. And they said that's standard. And we thought, well, that's pretty bad. And we just made like very simple changes. We want to make sure when the nurses or the techs are coming in, we want to make sure how they put the gloves on or how they put the gowns on. And we limit the amount of people coming in and everything. And and then there was a female surgeon who was wearing a niqab. And I told her, I said, sister, it needs to like, you can't be like touching with the patient. And then finally I had to respectfully ask her to leave the operating room because when she moved forward, the niqab will go like 2 feet front of her, then back. I respect that. But you know what? I told her, I said, would you want your mom to get infection because of that? And alhamdulillah, out of all the surgeries we did, only one guy got superficial infection. None of the other guys got it. So I think very simple things that you can do, to a lot of low-hanging fruits which you can do, but these are the things which you do when you're on ground and you can see and assess and help these guys. As far as the reaffirm, I think every single patient that you take care of, every single patient has their own story. And every time you go take care of any single patient, I think later on, Brother Yasser sent us some videos in Arabic. We unfortunately are not, good in Arabic, or we can't understand. But some of those testimonials were very moving. Like they brought like, there were 4 sons who brought their dad. They said the dad just fell last night from roof and he broke his hip. And so we took him to the OR and the Umar, he said, dude, this is not from last night. This is old. It was like stuck there, and finally we fixed it and everything. And then the sons came, they said, can we take a picture with you and the father? We said, okay. Yes, he said, it happened 2 years ago. And he has been on the bed for last 2 years, but alhamdulillah, then he walked. But then you have sad side of stories as well. Like, last day when we were leaving, we were giving out candies and chocolates to people. And there was a little kid, a 4-year-old girl. So we gave her candy and her mom came. She said, no, don't give her candy. She can't have candies. We said, why? She said, she's having her surgery done today. And I said, who's doing it? She said, the guys from America. I said, well, we may not look like, but it's just me and him, the guys from America. She said, no, 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 the American doctors are going to do it. So we said, yes, sister, but we are the ones, but we don't know anything about her. But the sad part was then the mom took out her MRI. Right before this war, the girl had a malignant tumor of her tibia. It's been 2 years now. No one has taken care of it. Obviously, not possible. And when we inquired about, it was not, she thought it was just taking it out, but obviously it needs the biopsy, orthopedic oncology, then oncologist and hematologist care. None of that is available. So we just ended up giving her more candies than usual, and that was it, unfortunately. So there are those kind of things, and that's just one story. I think there are way too many kids, way too many adults with these kind of stories. But I think that's the important thing, that these kind of medical missions, what the kind of work SAPA is doing is amazing. But like there was another guy that we saw in the evening. We came out and then we saw a guy under the tree lying on a bed. And so I asked Umar, I said, do you know him? He said, no. We asked the guys, he said, does anyone know who's this guy? Because everyone has left and it's 9 p.m. at night and he's still lying under the tree. So we went to him. They said, well, his family brought him from Casella on a tuk-tuk for 8 hours. He is a car mechanic, 6 kids. He was working under a car and the jack broke and it crushed his back. And that happened about a month ago. No care. So when we started examining him, he could still feel the painful stimuli all the way up to here. So we thought, like, if he's feeling pain, that means there is a chance. So brother Yasser and the local team was very helpful. We said, our organization, along with you guys, we are willing to help him. Alhamdulillah, those guys, the SAPA team, got him shipped to Port Sudan. We identified a neurosurgeon who was willing to help him. And he went to Port Sudan. They operated on him. SAPA guys then helped him with the rehab and everything. And then they sent me a picture of him like standing and smoking. Although smoking is not good right after surgery, but at least he's living his life now. So Alhamdulillah, these are the things which help. And I think that's how SAPA is playing a huge role. And that's why all these medical missions and physicians going in create a huge impact.
Yeah, that smoking picture means he's good now.
He's good.
He's
Yes.
good now, yeah.
Yes,
That's-
absolutely.
Yeah. We are running out of time. I will give you the same modified question. Sadiq will be like the last question in English for you, but I will continue in Arabic for the rest of the panelists. So the same question, how we can better engage more volunteer in future SAPA mission and mentorship effort. And if you have any story from your last mission there, you can tell us.
Yeah, that's a good question. How to engage more SAPA volunteers. I think it's important to continually bring up these missions, continually bring up stories like the couple you just mentioned that will move people to want to make a difference. So in opportunities like this in the GA, mention it and make it something that people can care about. And then obviously like using our social media to promote it and that kind of stuff. As far as a specific story of a patient story that moved me, I do have a few, but I actually, so going back to the medical mission, somebody that I ended up recruiting to go with us from the pulmonary side of things was actually my mother, Dr. Nun Mahjoub. And I think she had a better patient interaction than I did, so I'll just use hers. So she was talking with children during her pulmonary clinic, and many of them had pulmonary fibrosis. And this was a consequence of them needing to mine gold for like so long because they had no source of income. So to me, these are the situations we're dealing with. And a lot of these patients don't have access to oxygen, unfortunately. So you run into situations with end stage lung disease where patients don't have adequate oxygen supply. And I don't mention that to make everyone sad. I just mention it to kind of say like education about risk factors and then supplying whatever medical supplies we can supply. Like these things can go a long way.
You, why? And I will give you the chance to speak in Arabic now.
Uh, there's a lot of stories, but I'm going to tell you. Do you want me to speak in Arabic or English?
Yep.
Or Gaelic.
Gaelic, okay. Orad Sudevaha Shinewel. See, that's everything I know about Irish. So these stories, it's actually not a story in a clinical setting. كان في واحدة اسمها أفتكر وسام جات من الدمازين. She came a long way to meet us. I think part of it was the over advertisement for the SAPA mission. So I think she was on the road for like 2 or 3 nights. She brought her mother who had pituitary adenoma. She had acromegaly, a growth hormone overstimulation gland. Her understanding that this mission would provide surgical cure for this, and she was right. There is a surgical cure for acromegaly and pituitary adenoma. I'm not the person, and Gaddarif wasn't the place. And there was no way that we would do something like that just off the chance that we might be successful. It's very high complex procedure. So I tried to convince her that this is not the right place. And obviously you can imagine كانت زعلانة, she was very upset and she started crying. And at that moment, I felt that we failed her. And it was very, very hard looking at her. وبتشوف إن هي بتدمع و she's just about to cry and her mother is very disappointed. الhope الأمل ده مع حاجة ما سهلة إن أنت تشيله من الزول فجأة يعني. And she decided that she's going to take all this trip. burden بتاع الرحلة والتعب والسهر والuncertainty and she wants to meet SAPA mission. وأجي أنا أقول لها إنه ما عندك حل في الحتة دي. The saddest part of the story, الحاجة الموجعة في القصة دي إنه هي كانت ممتحنة في كسلة ثاني يوم وقررت إن هي تقايض مستقبل الأكاديمي والمهني عشان احتمال أمها تقدر تلقى العلاج. Again, same in line what Irfan was saying about the local team and Asma. طبعا Asma يعني ما شاء الله يعني she managed to get us the second best thing, which is an endocrinology consult virtually. الدواء زي ما متخيلين غالي جدا جدا وقد يكون ما متوفر, ف they managed to give us 6 months supply. رسلت ورقة للمسجل بتاع الكلية إنه يحاول يدوها يعني تحصل الملحق, لأنه she decided to trade off مستقبلها اللي هو ممكن تمتحن السنة الجاية ممكن ما تمتحن, بس في خضم إنه هي أمها دي تلقى بصيص بتاع أمل يعني. القصة دي ما زالت بتوجعني, وهي السبب إنه أنا كتبت يعني استشهاد ما بس لسابا, لكل التيم اللي كان موجود وأساميهم وذكرياتهم وشوشهم الليلة يستقبلوني أهلي, لأنه أنا بفتكر إنه الرسالة جاتنا من أسماء بعد 6 شهور قالت إنه وسام امتحنت الملحق وجابت جيد جدا. أنا بفتكر إنه الميشن دي when you ask me if it's worth going and what stories reaffirm my position إنه بصيص الأمل ده اللي بنديه للناس يستحق, ولأنه الحرب طبعا أهدرت كرامتنا وأهدرت كبرياءنا وأهدرت دماء كثيرة. أنا أعتقد زي ما قال أبونا السمل إنه الصادق سمل إنه حثيث أقدام أمهاتنا بيستحق وإكرام موتانا بيستحق, لكن الناس اللي اشتغلنا معاهم أسمع عمر جاي والشاذلي وعمر أبو زيد ومس رحاب والتيم اللي كنا بنشتغل معاه في القضارف ديل كلهم بيستحقوا, ووسام بتستحق, وانتوا كلكم بتستحقوا. فعشان كده ما المفروض نفقد البصيص بتاع الامل ده, والناس اللي بتشتغل معاهم هناك هم زي ما قال عرفان they are the real hero. احنا بس مجرد يعني means بتاعت vehicles بتاعت الامل دي يعني, لكن اكيد حياتنا وان لم تكن هي الاجمل تستحق.
اكيد بكم وبكل زملائنا في سابا وخارج سابا في أمريكا وخارج أمريكا قادرين نكمل المشوار وقادرين يعني نساعد في إلئام جرح في بلدنا السودان يعني. go to you. ما أي لا مشكلة كويك بس.
So, because the part that I did was the workshop, so I think the most the feedback that I got from the participant after the 3-day workshop was very, very, very encouraging, and just to hear their gratitude and appreciation of this, which is something that might have taken me shorter time in creating, something that I'm trained to do, so it comes to me easier. But when you deliver it, you don't think about the impact that you're doing on people until you hear their feedback of like, this is one of the best things that we've been through. Nobody ever trained us in ultrasound. We understand the importance of it. It's just that immediate feedback that you get after the workshop. It's very rewarding, and it's not about the fact that it's not just because I did deliver that, but it's also because you understand that hopefully down the road that this is something that they're going to be able to use in their patient care, because they're the heroes who are sitting behind and delivering the care. So I think that to me is more rewarding than anything, and that's why I'm going to repeat myself by saying it's really nothing that you could think of in delivering over there is not important. Everything is important. Everything is well received and well appreciated. And everybody's so eager and enthusiastic because initially I wasn't sure what to expect. I was like, I have this, I know how to do it, and I'm just going to deliver it. But when I got the feedback and when I talked to them, and then we kept some relationship, it is very rewarding. Both on a personal level and as a clinician, like an educator level for sure.
طيب خلونا أختم بدعوتكم جميعا لتكونوا جزء من هذا العطاء النبيل، وأن تمدوا أيديكم بالعلم والخبرة والرحمة، فالميسر لم ينتهي والنداء ما زال يتردد في الأفق. من سيكمل المشوار؟ من سيكمل المشوار؟ فمن سار في درب على نهج طبه تضاءت له الدنيا ويزرع له الأثر. كونوا أنتم هذا الأثر الجميل في رحلة شفاء وطنكم. معا أكيد بنصنع الفرق، وسابا من أجل السودان، من أجل كل شيء في السودان. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much to our EMT panel for those powerful stories. Your service exemplifies the very best of our profession and our community. We now come to our final session of the General Assembly. And it's perhaps the most, for many of us in this room, especially young Sudanese Americans, the question of identity and connection is complex. We're finding a home away from home, building lives in the diaspora, navigating between cultures. The question becomes, what does Sudanese community mean for our generation? Why do we come together? And how do we stay connected to Sudan while building futures here? The next chapter is about reimagining what binds us together and how we can strengthen those bonds for future generations. Moderating this important conversation is Iman Omar. She's joined by three dynamic young leaders, Sarah Ali, Dima Osman, and Muhammad Yahya Munawwar. This panel represents the future of our community, and I encourage everyone, especially our younger attendees, to listen closely and contribute to the conversation afterward. Please welcome our final panel.
اوكي نبدأ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So good afternoon everyone. My name is Iman Umar and it's an honor to welcome you to the last session which is brought to you by SAPA Youth. The next chapter, Reimagining Sudanese Connections to the Diaspora. As Sudanese people across the globe, many of us are rebuilding what home means, emotionally, culturally, and collectively. So today we want to explore how our generation is finding a home away from home and reshaping why we come together as a community. So we thought this was a good conversation to end the conference with. I know we had a pretty heavy and emotionally impactful panel before us, so hopefully this can be a little bit lighter and also just have some productive conversation. So I'm joined here by three incredible leaders. I'm going to introduce them briefly, but I'm also going to let them talk more about their own accomplishments and because they're really impactful. So first we have Sarah Ali. She's my co-director of the General Assembly Coordination. And despite the fact this is her first year being formally involved with SAPA on a leadership level, she has jumped in and made a huge impact, coming in as a co-director of coordination, planning an amazing event, which was on Friday. She's just been phenomenal and just clearly a natural born leader. She's also a recent graduate of, is there an echo? Okay, I just feel okay. Of UMST. She was an officer and she basically founded a huge student initiative and became one of the biggest student-led initiatives that helped people in Darfur. Now we have Dima Usman over here. She's a service co-chair, building programs that uplift and connect Sudanese communities. So she was involved in leadership at GMU. So for those who don't know, George Mason University is a huge cornerstone of Sudanese community in Northern Virginia. I even know about them and I was just working in DC, but every single event that they planned was always sent in all the group chats. Huge Sudanese community. They have the Sudanese Student Association with iconic events. I remember I went to the one that was a screening of Goodbye Julia. They have events such as the Mock Jirtig. Just like everyone in that area knows GMU and their events are truly for the community. And then Muhammad Yahya. He's mentorship chair, strengthened youth pathways through mentorship and professional development. He's been super helpful and always willing to help literally anyone with anything. And that's, I think, what makes him such a great addition to the SAPA e-board. And he's a medical student at Duke as well. So I'll let them go more about their specific accomplishments, but I really did want to give context about what great leaders we have with us right now. So just to ground us a little bit, what does home mean to you now in the context of the diaspora?
Yeah, it's a really great question, Iman. First of all, I want to thank you for all the accolades. You, of course, have also been extremely helpful, just spearheading everything with the youth events. And yeah, I really appreciate you as a co-chair. You've been amazing. But what home means to me now, to be honest, I'm still trying to figure that out. I, of course, studied in Sudan, 2018 till 2023. When the war broke out, we had to transition to Tanzania. I graduated last year, but it really was just, for me personally, a huge transition, a huge shock, because I literally was like on break for my exams when the war began. So, everything is still kind of there, all of my notes, all of my clothes, all of my books. So until now, I'm still trying to navigate like what home is to me. Of course, there's like spaces like these where I do feel at home, just being with my fellow, Sudani, friends and co-chairs and, all of you here. And of course, any like Lemma Sudaniya, I find home in that. But I'm not sure if I can say I've found the exact home yet. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I mean, that was actually a pretty deep question to start off with. And I think we're probably all grappling with what home means right now. If you guys could also share.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Iman, and then thank you for the answer, Sada, as well. So for me, I was born and raised in Virginia, so I've kind of just been here my whole life. The definition of home to me, I guess, has always been somewhere where I can just, be myself, express my traditions and, my Sudanese side. I guess being a diaspora has been like struggling with kind of the identity of you being American, but also being Sudani. So that's something that I feel like I'll always be navigating the rest of my life. But, alhamdulillah, spaces like this, GA has been a perfect opportunity for us to kind of get more in touch with our Sudani roots and meet more people like us. So alhamdulillah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the introductions, and it's really nice to be here at the end of the conference. It's a lot of hard work to organize the event, so I really thank everyone at SAPA and SAPA Youth for all the organization. I grew up in the US for the first 10 years of my life, and then I lived in Saudi before moving back, but I've never lived in Sudan. So for me, at least, being Sudani and like finding home has always been in sharing the stories with other people that have had similar experiences. So a lot of us have lived our whole lives outside of Sudan, and all we have are kind of memories of going back and seeing family, and we might connect it to the food, the people we met, the things that we spoke about, the like going on Shara Nil as like someone coming from outside. Having the opportunity to kind of share those stories with people always gives me memories of maybe being younger, being with family, being in a simpler time, and it gives you kind of that comfortable feeling that you get when you're at home. So that's why, so being at somewhere like here this weekend, it's so nice to talk to people that you've never met before in your life, but you have so much shared experiences, and you might even know the same people just because we're all from the same place. So you kind of get that comfortable feeling that you get to say when you're like at home. Being in somewhere like this feels like being home.
Thank you guys for sharing. So speaking of, in the new generation of Sudanese people in the diaspora, and we're reshaping our understanding of community. I know, like you mentioned, events like these are really, really helpful to just ground us, remember our community, who we are, and why we're pursuing all the amazing things that we are, and gives us a sense of purpose. So how are you all kind of reshaping understanding of community, belonging, and cultural preservation. As people with, like you said, different definitions of home, etc. Sarah, if you want to start. Sarah, if you want to start us off.
Yeah. So as far as reshaping, I guess the way that I connect and I guess honor Sudan and the cultures, I really try to make it a point to, you know, teach everyone, like especially, the diaspora, a lot of them not having been to Sudan or not having been exposed as often as they'd like, of course, due to the unfortunate war. So I do kind of try to make it a point to tell them about all of the things that are a tradition for us. And, of course, here, there's a space where we're able to discuss and kind of reflect on just our experiences and what it means to be Sudanese. But I think it's also really important to, I guess, physically integrate things too. So for example, doing things like Ma'at Gada Jabana, being like, okay, you guys, this is something that we do in Sudan. Or Gada Shabab, we're singing with each other, having a sing along. So I think I really do try to integrate the things that I've learned and the traditions that I've kind of adopted in Sudan. Yeah, and just, tell my siblings, my Sudanese friends that, aren't as, I guess, mutaqafin, if you will, about those practices and traditions.
No, that's amazing. And I think that's what I love also about SAPA Youth is that I think we were talking about this with Dr. Mohammed Humayda. We were saying call it identity crisis discussions, where it seems like everyone on the board has such a different upbringing, lived in different countries, and we're all coming together and we're all Sudanese. And that's what brings us, well, that's a commonality for us. But just, you kind of have that anxiety sometimes with the war and you're saying okay, what does being Sudanese even mean if I don't have a place that I can just go home to every summer? If I don't have that, I can't go to my grandma's house or whatever. It's I think this conference definitely, it feels like that is my yearly grounding thing. So Muhammad Yahya, if you want to share as well. Oh wait. You want to share as well?
No, you're good. Thank you. So I feel like in the term, in the sense of building a community, I think a really great way of that is that as Sudanese, we tend to, always find each other and flock to each other, which I love. I feel like anytime I'm in an area and I find a Sudani person, I feel like I'm at peace. I found, my best friend at that point. And I feel like the internet and social media has also played a really big role in building a Sudani community online. That could be just through different Instagram and TikTok accounts where you're able to see people's content and, just feel like you can relate to what they're going through and what they're experiencing, as well as the different cultural traditions and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. If anyone saw our youth trivia night, we definitely included some things about social media and pop culture, because I think it's also important to recognize that now with the diaspora as well, there's Sudanese American culture, there's Sudanese Canadian, Sudanese British, and all of these are equally valid. And they're the different ways that cultures evolve and develop within different circumstances. Hamad Yahya, if you want.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Having lived outside of the US and not in Sudan, being Sudani it's changed in the context with where you live. So us being here in the US means that we have a specific culture because of how we've grown up and what we've grown up around. And that gives us kind of a little bit more of a niche of our own understanding of what Sudani culture is. And that's something that I've kind of struggled with growing up. What does it mean to be Sudani? What are actual Sudani things? Because when you think about it, a lot of it, of what, at least what I know, is based off what family tells me. And that's kind of very subjective based off their own lived experiences and their own personal views and where they grew up and where they moved and the choices they made. So as I've grown older, as it's been a struggle of trying to find what's an objective view of what does it mean to be Sudani and what does it mean to have the Sudani identity. And some of the things I've done, I've trying to look online for random documentaries about the history of Sudan and how we got to where we are, not just politically but also culturally, and how we are as a people. I know there's always, if you stay up late enough, we'll always have the conversations: are we Arab or are we African? Are we more of this or more of that? And it's like it's been nice even here. Like I think yesterday, while we were upstairs, we were having a conversation about like what does it mean to be Sudani. Most of the Sudanis we meet, we come, especially in the U.S., we come from a relatively similar cultural background that represents a pretty small proportion of Sudan. Sudan is a huge country. For having those conversations, it gives us thoughts of, okay, what does it actually mean to be Sudani? Is it just the food that we eat? Is it the way that we talk? Is it just where we're from? Or are there kind of deeper things that we can all connect with that can kind of push us to, okay, we're creating a community not just based off, hey, our like families know each other and whatnot, but hey, we have these similar values, we have these similar thoughts, and we get to use it to push ourselves forward as a community and to support each other.
Yeah, thank you. So we wanted to open up the questions to the audience just because, as a personal note, I think we have a lot to learn, especially from the different youth leaders and just Sudanese Americans in general, because we are living in America, and I think just having an appreciation for that experience and valuing it. I speak to some people about this, but I grew up in Abu Dhabi, and I think when I first came to the US for college, I had this delusion like, oh, I live in Abu Dhabi. There's Chili's, there's PF Chang's. I'm basically living in America, like, so I don't have anything to learn about the Sudanese American community. But then I feel like I learned so much about the different struggles growing up, being a minority, feeling other than just the different ways that they grapple the identity. So I think I wanted to open it up to the audience to just like ask questions to them about leadership, about service, about their plans for the future, how they really do stay grounded and holding on to the identity. Because I think even now after the war, I think especially when it comes to medicine, it feels like anything can happen. No one is vulnerable to immunity. No one is vulnerable to any situation. I think after the war, we saw people in the best financial situation, the worst financial situation, people that would never think would be in a situation, asking for help are in that situation. So I think medicine is kind of similar, and it serves as an anchor for chaos when things are going awry. So wanted to open it up. If you can have someone walking around with the microphone. We have Ula over there, our youth president. So if anyone has a question, raise your hand, and if you're lucky, Ula will spot it and give you a microphone.
And I think even more than questions, even if people have their own thoughts about like what we've asked, if they want to share it and see, because there's a lot of us here, we're all here to share it and see if we have similar ideas to each other.
What do you all think are the biggest challenges to like connecting between the Sudanese American community and this community that traditionally grew up? What do you all think are the biggest challenges between like connecting with the people of your generation and the previous generation?
You're asking about the biggest challenges between like our generation versus our parents right now?
So I asked this because I've experienced this myself. Like I grew up in this country. I felt like when I was trying to connect with SAPA, there were a lot of barriers to communication. And I was wondering like what kind of challenges you guys have faced and like between being like a Sudanese American versus like somebody who came here as like an IMG.
Yeah. That's a really great question, actually. So I was actually born in Sudan. I came here when I was like, I think 5-6 years old, did school here, all the way up to high school, then, went to medical school in Sudan. And I definitely noticed a really big difference between the way that I'm able to interact and I guess like talk to my khaltis and my ammus and kind of like being able to relate to them like after having graduated and like, spending so much time in Sudan. I feel like before there was, of course, like the language barrier. My Arabic was not, يعني كنت مقصرة شديد. with my Arabic. And even like, the conversations that I was able to have with, my yani elders, عمو خالته وجده, I was able to definitely connect with them so much better, having lived with them, having spent so much time in Sudan and just integrating into the culture. I think the biggest challenge, though, to answer your question, really is just the fact that we're not really, as diaspora, given, the luxury of having so many Sudanese, like Khaltus and Amos, to interact with. Because, like, on a day-to-day basis, there's so many that you'd speak to, بتاع الدكان والركشة وفي السوق يعني a lot of people who but yeah, to answer your question, the biggest challenge is I really think just us not having spent, the time that we needed to spend in Sudan to understand them in a deeper manner, if that makes sense. I hope that answers your question.
I think it's also like the fact that I think a lot of our parents came over like for the betterment of us, like their families, and I think like they would come over to the U.S. and I think some of the imagination is that like, but we still get to keep like this just Sudani bubble, and our kids are gonna grow up in like this really protected environment that we're gonna make, and they're gonna be as if they like grew up in Sudan, but like we're in the context of like we live in the US, we're going to be integrating into the community that we are. And I think over the years, this has definitely been something that's gotten better. But the fact that we're gonna take on some of the characteristics and some of the values of the place that we live in, and we're gonna be a little bit different than they are. And I think it comes with language, it comes a little bit with culture. But I think there's sometimes maybe like some gears are grinded whenever there's like conversation of like, hey, maybe let's do I'm blanking on like a good example, but an event that maybe combines like our Sudani culture and identity, but with like an American twist. And I think that's something that maybe we can like meet halfway in between. But yeah, I think you answered it really well. So it's hard to find extra.
No, I agree. You did a really good job with the response.
Thank you guys for those responses. I do want to be mindful of time and want to be respectful of everyone's time. I think in general, I really encourage anyone to come walk up to any of these panelists, start these discourse, start the discussions, because I think these are the moments where we really learn about each other and their experiences. I know schools like GMU are just really important. My little sister used to make fun of me when I played Sudani rap in the car. Then she went to VCU, and now she's coming back asking me to translate songs. She's like, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? So I'm like, okay, but I put the whole Google Doc, I'm putting Rap Genius annotations. So I think honestly, like places like GMU, VCU, these type of colleges, they have huge Sudanese associations, and they're really, I do think, playing a role in preserving the culture and things like that.
And I was just gonna add on, if any of you guys were even thinking of like making an SSA, I would say to definitely do it. It's been one of like my best decisions was joining it and being on the board in college. Alhamdulillah, like it's helped me build such a nice community. And if y'all have any questions about like starting an SSA or like different events to host, please feel free to come and ask me after.
Yeah, just to like piggyback off of what you, Iman, were saying about approaching one of us, I'd say, I think more importantly, approach, our board of directors or any of our elders here. You have Dr. Muhammad, Dr. Huzaifa, who would be able to give us better perspective, from, I mean, not to say that, انتوا يعني طبعاً شباب معانا, ما تفهموني غلط, لكن of course, like them having spent more time in Sudan and understanding the culture better, they definitely would be able to give us a better perspective to, يعني understand Sudan and I guess bridge that gap that Dr. Sadiq was just asking about.
Yeah, that's a great point. Definitely agree with that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the panel, and thank you for bringing the energy to wrap up. Okay. Okay.
So I want to ask about obviously with Sudan the war going on for like over 2 years now. We're close to 2 years now. So I think it's people in Sudan. Obviously, their lives have changed, right? They've been flipped. You know, people have been everyone's become refugees now and everything. So I growing up as part of the diaspora, Sudanese Americans now, alhamdulillah, we've been blessed to be able to go to school still. We've been able to make a living for ourselves as work. So our lives haven't been, obviously our lives have been affected by people abroad, but us ourselves, we've been living our lives fine. So how do you guys, maybe I can ask the panelists here, anyone else who's attending, how do you kind of grapple with that survival's guilt almost? Like might be hesitant to, post your accomplishments because you got family abroad you don't want them to be envious of you or jealous because their situation is way more dire than yours. So I'd like to hear what you guys think about that and any thoughts you want to say.
That's a great question. Yeah.
It's definitely hard because it's hard to know that like my focus is doing really good in school and focusing on studying when, other people, like my own people, my own family are struggling to like feed themselves and to get out of dangerous situations where they might die. And I think at least for me, it helps me to at least like try and focus of, okay, I'm pursuing this career. Why? Why am I doing this? What's the end goal? Like, am I just gonna become a physician and that's it, work and then go home and that's it at the end of the day? I think it really helps where if you have a goal of like, no, I'm not just gonna be whatever I want to, but I'm people. If that's people who are currently around us here in the U.S., that's is that phrasing for back home, where that's an active thing that we can do. We can take over. We have the privilege of we live in the U.S. We're around a lot of people that, alhamdulillah, are going to be in better financial positions that they can donate. So hey, we should be doing fundraisers. We as the like Sudani youth, we're going to be around other Muslims, other Arabs, or other non-Muslims at our like colleges or universities at work. We get to spread the message about what's going on. Like we've heard from people here that aren't Sudani that it took a really long time for people to actually know what's going on back home. And it does fall on us. We can kind of take on the responsibility of like, hey, maybe we can't actively go back and help and do something like go back and do that. But what we can do is we can, elevate the voices of our own people, our own family back home as much as we can. We should be shouting from every rooftop about what's happening and what people can do and give people actionable items and being really open with people and giving people some grace. Maybe they don't know, but then holding ourselves accountable of like, okay, did I do enough today to let everyone that I know what's going on back home and what they can do and what they should be doing to help.
And I also, and I'm not a panelist, but I do have a point to that. I know a lot of my cousins who were displaced, who were in Egypt on their phones, just like their whole lives in halt. I remember when I was there hanging out with them, they really appreciate that. They're so shocked and proud and happy that Sudanese people living in America are posting about it, are making TikToks about it, are fundraising, are raising awareness. Like, يعني مبسوطين, they're like, wow, like this really means a lot to them. Like even though the fact that they're not personally affected on an individual level, the fact that they care enough to do all that really makes the people who are affected proud, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen in my experience. But I think like don't underestimate how much you guys are, you guys are doing the best that you can and trying to advocate. And I know that it's probably appreciated. And obviously we can always do more, but I think we should also, I think it's a good question.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off what you guys were saying and to better answer your question. So as far as like, being conscious, I guess, of what I tell my friends, especially, me being in the medical field and having studied with very brilliant people. To give you guys a story, like one of my friends actually, mashallah, finished step 1, finished step 2, scored in the 95th percentile. The day that he had received his step 2 result and khalas, he wants to apply for a visa, the ban came out. So obviously that was extremely devastating. And I've I've been pretty conscious to not really, talk to him much about like what's been going on with me, just because I want to be considerate. But I think, stories like that kind of make me more inclined to post, to advocate. And I know, SAPA took out a statement regarding the students that were, or the positions that were banned from coming, those who were matched even that couldn't come due to the ban. So, I think definitely us posting about it, us advocating, us continuing to converse about, about Sudan, everything going on there, and kind of leveling the playing field with them is extremely important. Yeah, something I wanted to bring up.
I'm kind of just going to summarize you and add on to what you guys were saying. But yeah, I agree. I feel like Muhammad Yahya was saying, intention is basically everything, and having that end goal in mind. So, do what you can by fundraising, posting on social media, raising awareness. You don't know, like one simple post that you post on like your Instagram story could truly teach someone about everything that's happening. So, just keep doing what you can in these types of situations. And yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you three so much for just sharing your thoughts and kind of initiating a really important discussion. And thank you everyone for engaging with this discourse with us. Yeah, can we get a round of applause for the panelists?
Thank you to that incredible panel for a thoughtful and hopeful look at the next chapter of Sudanese American identity and community. The youth have played a crucial role in movements and growth throughout the history of Sudan, whether that's through the medium of protest or cultural expression. You've given us a lot to think about and work towards over the next year, inshallah. Before we move on to our closing remarks, I have the honor of announcing the winners of SAPA Youth's first research poster competition. For those of you who were able to attend yesterday's research symposium, I'm sure you were impressed to see just how many strong posters that we had come out of the youth chapter. And I'm personally inspired to know that we have so many sharp minds who are contributing to the world of academic research on behalf of our community. After some serious deliberation, our judges were able to narrow our presenters down to 3 prize winners. In third place, we have Shahid Muhammad and her poster titled Impact of Intraoperative Microbreaks with Stretches on Pain and Performance in Rhinology. You just go say it. Okay. Second, Abhada Ashmek, her work on alcohol use. And her poster was titled Alcohol Use as a Risk Factor for Clostriditis difficile. And finally, in first place, we have Shahid Abdul Munam Kaddash. With her poster on management and outcomes of postpartum hemorrhage among patients admitted to tertiary care hospitals in Rwanda. Mabruk to our winners. Please make sure that you go and you talk to Arif about getting your prizes. Now, over the past 2 days, we've journeyed together through crisis and hope, through challenges and solutions, through individual stories and collective action. We've heard from humanitarians and policymakers, from medical innovators and cultural leaders, and from seasoned professionals and emerging voices. What strikes me most is this. Despite everything, despite the crisis, despite the distance, despite the uncertainty, we're here, together, committed, unbroken, and looking towards the future confidently. To close out this General Assembly, I'd like to invite Dr. Mohammed Hamida back to the stage for closing remarks and to thank our sponsors who made all this possible. Dr. Hamida, the stage is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude this year's SAPA GA, I wanted to extend my deepest gratitude to each one of you. Over the past days, we didn't just attend a conference, but we built connection, shared ideas, strengthened a community that continued to rise no matter the challenges. SAPA stands today because of people like you, people who show up, who gives back, and who believe in something far bigger than themselves. And before we close, please join me to honor our incredible volunteers. Please, all volunteers, stand up, please. Please do. Your energy, your dedication, and service are the heartbeat of this entire GA. And I have a special thanks to our SAPA Youth Chapter, especially Sarah. Where's Sarah? Especially Sarah. Iman, please stand up, Iman. Ula, and Asma, of course. And for our magnificent MC, Ahmed Al-Wasila as well. Thank you so much for the outstanding leadership and tireless work. And a very special shout out to Naveen, our Director of Development, whose creativity and dedication elevated this entire GA. Let's give them again all big round of applause, big round of applause for their amazing work. Also, I want to thank the Board of Directors and the Sudan office for their selflessness, commitment, and endless hours behind the scenes. Our thoughts remain with Sudan, with every family affected, every life disturbed, every dream put on hold. We carry them with us, and they give our work meaning and urgency. And lastly, I want to thank you, because without your support, none of this would happen. As we leave today, may we continue forward, united by heritage and inspired by hope. Thank you all and safe travels. See you next year, inshallah. Let's get all of us together here to do our annual picture. So please come to the stage.
سلام يا جماعه، في تليفون واقع هنا، عايزه يشيك تليفونه ايفون، فلو تليفونك رايح منك واقع جنبينا. That's yours؟ تمام. في بريسلت برضه شكلها سكرافسكي غاية ما بعرف انا. It's a golden bracelet. Check your hand. لو وقعت منك bracelet, it's right here. It's yours? No, it's not yours. Uh-huh. I know, it's a bracelet. Please check. Or come find me. Yeah. I don't know.